Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Core Brands podcast. Today, it's going to be a solo episode where I am going to talk about my journey from, the beginning of my career up until today. The few changes I had to take, or I decided to take, and what led me to where we are now with Core Inform Studio. So I'll try to keep it short and brief, but I think the goal with this episode is going to be pretty much to kind of like demystify that idea that you have to stick to something forever and just do one thing. You can actually do more things in your life and be good at those things, and you can change directions, and it's all okay, and it's all part of growth and our own development. So starting back when I was in secondary school. So I've always studied art and design in secondary school. So in Portugal, the system is a little bit different. So since the age of 14, you pick a specific area, and I've picked art and design. And that was always very clear and easy for me because that was my natural preference always. Then from there, I started university. So I have a 5-year degree in communication design, where I really focused on brand identity design. There was a lot of, drawing and web design at the time. Of course, it was like very way back there. So I finished this diploma in 2005. So it was really the early days of, the internet and everything. So yeah. And then after I did my university degree, I started working straight away. I took a lot of internships and a lot of jobs with small design studios in Lisbon. But yeah, I always felt like I was not really achieving my full potential because there was a lack of freedom. So I think my problem is that when I was working on these jobs, I was not allowed to make my own decisions. And when you work for a company, you don't get to pick the clients, and you're pretty much what we call now a pixel pusher. So we just pretty much have to follow whatever directions you have. And I was not quite happy with that. At the same time, we were kind of like entering an economic crisis in Portugal, and I think in the world, going into 2007. And salary wise was not great. I was on my 20s. I wanted to be independent, get my house, and I was not able to achieve that with this type of job. So I was ready to take a leap and move to something else. At the time, I was like traveling 2 hours each way from my house to work to get paid. I think at the time was 500 euros per month. So it was ridiculous. And I could not sustain a life like that. So I decided to take a job closer to home that was completely outside of my creative skills. So it was an admin job. It was supposed to be temporary, just 3 months, but I ended up actually really enjoying it. So I stayed for 6 years. So yeah, I've worked for 6 years in a public hospital in my hometown in Portugal. Like while I was there, I was moving, from different departments, being my last role kind of like on the financial department. So I was doing a lot of financial and coding, into medical records. So it's a bit complex to explain, but yeah. In the meantime, my husband got a job offer to come to Ireland. And we moved to Dublin within 2 or 3 months. And when we arrived to Dublin, we decided, because at the time, our daughter, she was only 6 months, so we decided that I would stay home for maybe 1 year, until we get, more comfortable and put her on a crash and all of that. But long story short, I could not stay put at home, so I decided to start looking for a job straight away. And within 6 months, I landed a job in a big corporate company. And that's kind of like a shift that I had in my career. So I kind of like entered the corporate world in Dublin, and I started, the career ladder that we all know, going from better job to better job, better pay, better benefits. And that went on from 2013 to 2019. So another 6 years doing roles as business operations analyst, data analyst, project manager, PMO manager in a pharmaceutical company. So I did a lot of different roles, around that type of job. Then in 2019, when I was 38, 38 years old, I decided that I wanted to study again, go back to study. So I was looking into different courses, and I found a diploma it was a 6 month diploma in digital marketing. I've always loved social media. Like, I have Instagram since the very first day, and I was like so curious, and I just signed up for the diploma, did the diploma. And while I was doing that diploma, my current job at the time started to get really bad. Like, it was never perfect. Like, I took that job because I had to take that job at the time, but I never really enjoyed it. I didn't like the atmosphere in the office. It was very much toxic and very money driven. It's very hard to explain, but it was not a great place to be. I also felt like I was 38, and I felt very old because everyone was just like 21, 22. It was just a weird place to be. But anyway, it started to get really bad, into a point where I was bullied and harassed by my direct manager. And for me, that was kind of like the trigger moment to leave everything. And I just closed my laptop, closed the door, and went home, and I literally never went back. So without going into much detail, that made me realize that I was very unhappy at the job, and I actually craved more creativity in my life. I really wanted to do something that sparked joy and that made me happy every day. I didn't want to wake up with that feeling that, oh my God, I have to go to work again. I can't wait to be Friday. I can't wait for the weekend. That's a terrible position to be. So I just left the job. I left the job with a clue of what I was going to do again, but I knew it that I had to give it a try. And I always wanted to be a designer since I remember myself. I've always wanted to be a designer, and I was always very proud from what I achieved, academically, and I really wanted to go back to that. So I decided very slowly to, pick up on old projects and starting redesigning them. And I created my Instagram account, Designed by Roberta, and start posting there, and that kind of like organically reached people, and people started connecting with me and asking me for work. And before I knew it, I was setting up by Roberta a creative studio in January 2020. So yeah, with that goes, like, what I really want to say is that I truly believe that what's for you comes and finds you again. I think I was always meant to work as a designer. I just took, a little detour in the meantime. It's also important to say that while I was working on this completely career in these different jobs in project management and financial and operations, I've always I've always been a designer, so I've always done freelancing jobs here and there for friends, for family. So I was always connected with the design industry. I've always had a software on my computer, so it's not like it was like a big break from me. It was just more like the way that I showed myself to other people. I remember when I left that toxic job and I went to LinkedIn to update my LinkedIn profile, I was so nervous because I was like, what are people going to think? Nobody knows I was a designer before. They think this is probably just a crisis that I'm having. And now I all of a sudden decided that I was a brand designer. And that was not the case because that was always my true identity. I was just doing something else in the meantime. So yeah, so there was that block, that kind of like shame. Um, but then I think the main message for me was like, if I don't say it, if I don't step into this authentic self that I am, nobody ever is going to take me, seriously. So I really wanted to show people that it's okay to change in life. It's okay to change jobs. It's okay to do something else. Um, and, it's okay to come back to what it was before, take risks. And there was always that in the back of my mind as well. Like, if this doesn't work, I'll probably just go back to the other career because it paid well. It served me well for many years. And, there was always that in the back of my mind. So, yeah, changed careers twice. The first time it was really hard, especially my parents at the time. They were a little bit sad because, I've worked and studied so much to be a designer. And when I gave up, my academic to become an admin, like that was seen as kind of like a drop from where I was. Um, but then, you know, 12 years later, I came back and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this, but I'm going to do it in my own terms. And thankfully, I had the backup from my family, my husband, and, their support means a lot to me and enabled that this was possible as well. I think that's important to say. So yeah, here it is. This is what I wanted to share today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about this story and about my career change. I don't think I'll change again, at least in the near future, but I'm really happy where I am today. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.